All right, let's jump right in. If you're doing A-level psychology, you already know that getting your head around mental health disorders is way more than just memorizing a list of symptoms. It's about having a real framework for understanding what people go through. So today, we're going to break down the key characteristics of depression, exactly as you need to know them for the AQA spec. And the first step? It's realizing that this is so much more than just feeling sad.
When we talk about depression, it's so easy for our minds to just jump to the word sadness. But honestly, that doesn't even begin to cover it. It's way more complex. We're talking about a condition that completely changes how a person thinks, how they feel, and how they act. It can lead to them pulling away from everyone and facing these huge internal battles. So really, understanding this has to start with empathy.
Okay, so let's meet Jessica. You've probably seen a case study like this in your textbook. It's kind of like a puzzle, right? We've got all these different observations from her parents who are, really worried about her. But what does it all mean when you put it together? This is exactly the kind of thing you'll get in an exam, where you have to be the detective and analyze the situation.
So the big question is, how do we go from just a list of worries to a proper, structured, psychological understanding? We can't just take a guess, can we? That's where psychology comes in. It gives us this brilliant toolkit that lets us sort through these symptoms and build a much clearer picture of what's going on. And here it is. This is our toolkit. For your AQ exams, you absolutely have to know these three categories: the behavioral, the emotional, and the cognitive characteristics. The best way to think about them is like three different lenses. We're going to look at Jessica's case through each one to understand all the different sides of what's happening. Okay, first up, let's dive into the behavioral characteristics. Now, these are the things you can actually see. They're the changes in how someone acts in their day-to-day life and routines. Right, the key word here is change. So for example, their activity levels might just completely tank, leaving them with no energy at all. That's lethargy. Or, and this is interesting, it can go the other way entirely into something called psychomotor agitation. That's where they're really agitated and just can't sit still. Then there's sleep. It gets totally messed up. We're talking either insomnia, where you can't sleep, or hypersomnia, where you're sleeping all the time. And finally, you'll often see people withdraw from friends and family, or become more irritable and even aggressive. These aren't small tweaks, they're major shifts in behavior.
Okay, so we've covered the outward actions. Now, let's go a layer deeper and talk about the emotional characteristics. This is all about the internal world, how the person is actually feeling inside.
And let me be clear, this is a million miles away from just having a bad day. We're talking about a really persistent, low mood. People often describe it as feeling worthless or just empty. Anger is a really big one too, and that can be aimed at themselves or at other people. And all of this is tied into lowered self-esteem, a really powerful feeling of not liking yourself or even hating yourself, which is just incredibly painful. And for our third and final lens, let's look at the cognitive characteristics. This is all about thinking. What's actually going on inside their head? What are their thought patterns like? Well, for a start, it can be incredibly hard to just concentrate on anything. Simple decisions that you wouldn't normally think twice about suddenly feel impossible. There's also this really strong bias towards negative things. It's like their brain is a magnet for the bad stuff, and it just completely ignores any positives. This often leads to what we call absolutist thinking, black and white thinking. A situation isn't just bad, it's an absolute catastrophe. And in some really severe cases, a person might even have delusions. This classic glass half empty, glass half full idea, it's the perfect way to understand that cognitive bias. This tendency to focus on the negative isn't just about being in a bad mood. It's a genuine shift in how you see the world. It's like your brain's filter is stuck and it's only letting the negative information through. The world literally looks and feels like a bleaker place. It's an incredibly powerful symptom. Okay, we have our toolkit: behavioral, emotional, cognitive. We've got the theory down. Now for the really important bit. Let's actually use it. This is what you have to do in your exam. It's time to apply this knowledge, so let's get back to Jessica and solve that puzzle. This, right here, is how you nailed those AO2 application marks. So I want you to actually think about this for a second. Looking back at what her parents said, what are the behavioral symptoms? What are the things she's doing that fit into that first category? Did you get them? First, her sleep is disrupted. She's staying up late at night. Then there are the arguments with her parents. That points directly to social impairment and irritability. And finally, being unable to concentrate on her coursework, That's a classic example of reduced activity levels. She just can't stick with the task. You see how we did that? We took the evidence from the case study and directly linked it to a specific behavioral characteristic. That's perfect application.
Awesome. Now, what about the other two pieces of the puzzle? What are her emotional and cognitive symptoms? What evidence do we have for those?
This is where it gets really clever. We're essentially translating everyday language into psychological terms. When it says she's angry and hates her parents, that's a clear emotional characteristic, anger. When it says she shows no enthusiasm, that's another emotional one. The technical term is anhedonia, a loss of pleasure, and unable to concentrate. Bam, that's a cognitive symptom, poor concentration. By breaking it down like this, we're not just guessing anymore. We've built a proper, systematic psychological analysis.
And that whole process we just went through, moving from just knowing the facts to actually applying them with confidence, that is the absolute key to smashing A-level psychology. It's a skill, and like any skill, it just takes a bit of practice, but it is 100% something you can master.
Now, if you want to really sharpen up that skill, to get personalized help with applying concepts exactly like this, then working with a tutor in one-on-one or small group sessions can be a total game changer. It's honestly a brilliant way to build up your confidence and make sure you're ready for your exams, especially if you're aiming for those top grades. So I'm going to leave you with one last thing to chew on, and this is getting into that top-level evaluation, your AO3 skills. Why do we even have these 3 separate categories? Think about it. How does using this framework, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive, help a psychologist tell the difference between clinical depression and just everyday sadness? Really thinking about that question is what pushes your understanding from just knowing the facts to truly thinking like a psychologist. Thanks so much